Time for another edition of Out and About with Jamie Grout, and this time around we'll be talking with WHO Radio's news director, Wendy Wilde. We share some great radio stories together. But first, a word from our sponsors, and want to welcome new sponsor, Justin Goodfellow, your Newton American Family Insurance agent. He does a great job there. You'll want to check him out and find out about all the different policies he might have available for you. And life's better when you're under their roof at American Family Insurance. Their agents can help you choose insurance to help protect what matters most. Life insurance from American Family Insurance Company can help financially protect your loved ones by replacing a portion of your income if you were to pass away. That means your family can have the help they need to continue to pursue their dreams. Contact Justin Goodfellow, agent at Justin Goodfellow Agency, LLC, at 641-792-8438 today. That's 641-792-8438 today. Products not available in all states. American Family Life Insurance Company, 600 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin. And also the fine folks at Wesley Life Park Center. Want to thank Lisa Zylstra and company there. Make your loved one's day by enrolling them in Willowbrook, Wesley Life Adult Day Center. Willowbrook on the Park Center campus provides a welcoming and stimulating environment that allows participants to maintain independence while receiving support and encouragement. Social engagement, companionship, and enriching opportunities are provided to give participants a purposeful and fulfilling day. Willowbrook's person-centered care includes exercise focused on total health and well-being, and programming that includes music therapy, pet therapy, guest speakers, outings, and much, much more. If you'd like to learn more about Willowbrook, call 641-791-4500 to arrange a tour. And also a new sponsor, Mercy One Newton. They're going to have their big gala coming up on April 26th. Time for another Out and About with Jamie Grout, and this time around we're talking with Wendy Wilde, who is the news director for WHO Radio, but also over a bunch of other radio stations as a news director. Is that correct, Wendy?
Yeah, regional news director. So okay. we headquarters 6 states, primarily in Des Moines, but we do have people in multiple markets in the news department, and we're all kind of centralized in Des Moines, but we all interact. We have, I don't know what, Elaine, 5, 6 meetings during the day with everybody, Teams meetings, 5, 6.
A bunch of meetings.
A bunch of meetings, and we all share ideas and stories, and it often helps. So people in Wisconsin, Madison, Milwaukee, Eau Claire, Chicago, only in emergencies, they have news people there. But we do. They had a shooting on the 4th of July. We took over news for a couple of days for them in that case. Quad Cities, which includes Illinois side, Missouri, St. Louis, Springfield, Nebraska would be Ogallala, which I love to say. And that's where Lake McConaughey is, and it's like a dream to go camping there for me. So anyway, but that has nothing to do with news. And Omaha, of course. And then in Iowa, we have multiple markets. Based out of Des Moines, but we also cover WMT in Cedar Rapids, WOC in the Quad Cities, KASI in Ames, and then we also back up news departments in Rochester, Minnesota, and Minneapolis. So we're very busy, and like I said, we have news people, though, in a lot of these markets, and so we try to help them out. They help us out. Somebody calls in sick, we jump in and we cover their newscasts for them to help them. We might generate stories of something big's going on. So it's a very exciting and dynamic news center.
Yeah, it's a big job. It really is. And you are a news director of radio station, specifically here in Des Moines. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes, of course.
Go back many years. Have you heard a guy by the name of Jack Shelley?
Well, of course.
Okay, he gave me my first tour of WHO.
No, really?
When I was a kid, somehow my dad knew him. My dad came to Newton as a speech, debate, and drama teacher. And I was just amazed, went into the room with all the teletypes, and for you kids that don't know what a teletype is.
They are so noisy.
Clickety-clack, 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 and it was kind of, before there was such a thing as the internet, it told us what the news was. And it was amazing, and he showed us all the different studios, and back then, WHO Radio and TV were in the same building.
Owned by Palmer.
Owned by Palmer, and it was on Walnut Street. Then it moved down to Grand Avenue, and now WHO Radio and TV are owned by 2 separate companies. And people don't understand that now. I think there are people who still perceive that it's the same.
And you know what? We're friends. I mean, we get along with the people at WHO TV. They're such a talented bunch, and Yeah, we're friends, I would say.
It's all real good.
Yeah.
And I was going to tell you, you are the third Wilde that I have worked with in my radio career.
Really?
I worked with a Wilde in Rockford, Illinois. I worked with a Wilde in Waterloo, and you are the third one.
Well, I'm a fake Wilde. I was a country DJ for the first 20 years of my career. And my maiden name is Introwitz, and can you hear a country DJ with the name Introwitz? And when I transitioned into news, everybody already knew me by that name, and I didn't think Introwitz would be a good news anchor name either, and I thought, yeah, I'll just keep it. But I readily admit I'm a fake Wilde.
How did you come up with the name Wilde?
Country radio.
Okay.
Country radio.
Sure.
There was actually an author who I really liked. I may remember it wrong. I think her name was Jennifer Wilde. But I could be wrong. But anyway, that was kind of part of my inspiration. And I loved Oscar Wilde. And so it just kind of like, well, it fits with country.
Sure,
so I stuck with it. And I've stuck with it now because everybody in the industry knows me by that name.
Sure.
And our listeners can probably understand it a lot better than Introwitz, which
sure.
has Bohemian connections.
Oh, it does?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I was Jamie Phillips.
Okay.
And because my middle name is Philip. And
makes sense.
Grout is the cement between the tiles in your bathroom. So
Yeah.
just to say, you know.
But you can at least understand it and spell it.
Yeah. So now I've decided, forget that. I'm not going to be Jamie Phillips any longer. If I get back on the air, I'm just using my real
The real
name.
you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And take it or leave it. You know, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Forget it. How long have you been here at WHO?
9 years.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you-
Almost to the day, not quite.
Okay. This is an open-ended philosophical question.
Ooh, good.
What is your news philosophy?
Oh, that's really simple, isn't it, guys?
Oh, she's asking her coworkers what her news.
And
philosophy
they're
is.
smiling. We talk about this all the time. Okay. My news philosophy is I've been in radio 47 years, and
I got you beat by 3 years.
there you go. I'm hoping to make it to 50.
Okay.
That's kind of a goal, a dream. But my news philosophy is a blend of old and new. So what is the old? It is we are not biased. We bend over backwards to try to strip bias out of our stories. That takes a lot of work because so many stories that are supplied to us by the big networks, they have bias words at least, if not ideas. And so we try really, we miss it sometimes, but we try really hard to strip that out.
We had a discussion about that just the other day.
Yes, it's a huge deal. And, you know, we used to have the fairness doctrine many years ago, which I know a lot of people hated because it was difficult. Where do you get that balance? And so it's gone. So we strive really hard to not be biased. I think that's bigger than anything that we do. But we also strive to represent the communities we represent. Sometimes we may be doing news for a community in another state we've never even visited. When I first came here, I was in charge of Minot, North Dakota news. Now, they had a news person there, but if they went on vacation, who would do the news? I would. From Des Moines, Iowa, I rode an Amtrak train past Minot, but I'd never been in Minot. And you know what? It's old-fashioned news. You have to care about your market. You have to learn about your market. I literally called and developed a relationship with the police public information officer there. They put me on their list. We would talk on the phone. They'd be available for my questions. I would text them. At one point, this was even before I came to iHeart, I was anchoring news for San Angelo, Texas from my Minneapolis home office closet, which I put soundproofing and turned into a studio. This was a million years ago when this was a new idea. And I would anchor news, and I did the same thing there. I probably only made 50 cents an hour because I put so much extra time into getting my own stories. But we do that here. We strive to find our own original sources. We strive to find our own content. So that's all the old-fashioned. What's new? Newscasts are shorter than they used to be. A lot of our newscasts are slightly pre-recorded and then shot out over the internet to land in automation systems where there isn't a person right now. That's very newfangled. You know, in a way, I kind of think of it as, you know, you go to the store and there's the self-checkout lanes, but I coach our people to take it further. And the further is, we're not just talking heads. We don't just mindlessly read some words. Get to know your market, make the calls, talk to people, double check your sources, find your own original sources, verify the information. That's the old-fashioned. So we've got the new-fangled technology. We've got shorter, faster-moving newscasts. We try to be more conversational. We try to wordsmith. For example, allegedly. That is such a newsy in speak word. Have you ever heard somebody use it in casual conversation? You know, oh, honey, I wanted you to talk to Bobby because he allegedly took Susie's Barbie doll. Nobody talks like that, right? Susie says he took her Barbie doll. So we use the principle, though. The principle is somebody's accused, not guilty. We just try to use more conversational words. You want to talk more philosophy? I love philosophy.
No, I get you, because it's like when I've gone to DJ schools in the past, you know, I think you and I have both been to conventions and things like that. When you give the temperature, don't say currently. In conversation, you don't say, if somebody asks you the temperature, oh, currently it's 86 degrees. No, you just say, it's 86.
Exactly.
Or somebody asks you the temperature. Well, at the airport, it's, nobody lives at the airport. It's like an old George Carlin bit.
Yes.
You know, and it's just kind of silly. You be conversational with people. I want to get back to your thing about bias, and I have to ask you a question here.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about this. There's people on the left that will not watch Fox News, even though they say that their newscasts are fair and balanced. There are people on the right that will not watch MSNBC News because they perceive that their newscasts are also not fair and balanced. That's because they perceive that they are left-wing. On the Fox News, it's the right-wing. Let's face it, WHO's programming is leaning toward the right.
Oh, there's no facing it. I mean, obviously, yes, the station admits that's what they do. Yeah.
Do you ever fear, here's the $64,000 question, do you ever fear as the news director at WHO that WHO Radio is perceived, the news department is perceived that it is biased to the right?
I love this question. This is really a big deal to me. When I came here...
And by the way, in asking that question, I want to make it clear that I personally do not perceive it that way.
Well, thank you.
I understand,
Good,
Wendy,
because we try hard to
that you and your department work
break
very
away.
hard
I
not
know
to do that. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the
but
doubt
but there is that perception.
Right.
But
exactly.
I will tell you what I want, and I started to talk about when I first came here, and I'll go back to that. But what I want for our news department, and what my bosses and our programming bosses have all agreed with me on this goal for our news department, is when there's a breaking story, when there's the tornado sirens go off, you turn the radio to WHO and you'll hear our news, and it will not be biased. You will know that this is credible information because you're not hearing bias. Doesn't matter if you lean right, doesn't matter if you lean left. You will know that what you're hearing is being shot straight. That is our ultimate goal. And there are things we do that I believe help us with that. So when I first came here, backtracking, the program director who hired me had a ditto head sign on his wall. So I knew he was leaning right. Mm-hmm. And
by the way, if you didn't know, that's a Rush Limbaugh ism,
ditto
ditto head. People would call in, and that meant that they loved Rush Limbaugh.
And my liberal friends would be aghast.
Sure.
And I will say, when Rush Limbaugh was first on the air, and I was at WHIO in Dayton, Ohio, I was anchoring news there, and I first heard him, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I've never heard anybody since Paul Harvey who was so compelling. But then he said some things that were, to me, outlandishly biased, and I suddenly had this realization, because I consider myself more independent, which I think has served me well. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to be skeptical of what I'm hearing, because it suddenly went ding, ding, ding in my head. So having said that, when I came here and the bosses interviewed me, and I had run for U.S. Congress as an endorsed Democrat, but I still considered myself an independent, but you have to caucus. In order to really run, you need some kind of force behind you. I was recruited. I was like, yeah, I can do this. Sure, what an honor and what an amazing opportunity it is. And it was great, and I lost, and I was so relieved because I'm not a politician. I was really relieved, but it was still a great honor. So when I came here and they interviewed me, the two top managers, the president of WHO and the program director of WHO with the ditto head sign on his door, And they asked me about the bias. And I said, you know what? Even having run for Congress as a Democrat, even having done I still considered it more independent, but a left-leaning talk show up in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, I got back into news because I didn't want to be political. I didn't want to be biased. That wasn't me. It was fun to try. It was an honor to do. It's like, this is not what I want to do. I just don't want to do this. I love news. I passionately love news.
Let me jump in real quick, and then you can continue your thought. But is that why you left being a DJ to get into news? Because you had such a passion for it?
Oh, you know, I didn't. I had a period, I did talk radio at WCCO in Minneapolis for about 6 years. It was part-time, but it was union, and I did enough that it paid pretty much full-time wages, and it was great fun. And that was actually when I decided, you know, I don't, as much as I kind of passionately thought I would like it, I don't think I'm a talk host. And I had been in news prior at WHIO at Dayton, Ohio. And I really liked it. And then I got back into country radio, and then I ended up at WCCO. And I was raising children, and I didn't want to drag them from city to city. CCO went about 6 years. It was great fun. I left there. I ran a 501c3 nonprofit for a while up in the Twin Cities for actually almost about 6 years. And then I decided the kids were off to college. My husband was supportive. What do you want to do with your career? Because my career took a bit of a backseat. I made the best of it. CCO was pretty making the best of it. I got to say, if you're going to make the best of it, wow, you know.
You don't know WCCO in the Twin Cities, legendary
it
radio
is. Like
station.
WHO is legendary.
Definitely.
And so, you know, I have to say that trying to stay put so I didn't drag the kids from city to city, because that's happens a lot in radio. That was making the best of it. I'm very pleased and proud that I was there, and it was an amazing opportunity, and the people I worked with were remarkable talent.
I mean, if you're a radio person listening to this, throwing out some names, Steve Cannon, Howard Viken, Boone and Erickson, they're all just legends there. And
I got to work with Charlie Boone on the air.
Wendy worked with these people.
I got to just a little bit work with Steve Cannon. I got to meet Roger Erickson, but not work with him. So it was Sid Hartman as well.
Sure.
He never said a word. I hope this isn't a bash, it's just the truth. He would never even say hello to me. I wasn't a sports guy, right? Some chick's coming in to do a talk show, whatever, it's not sports. He never even really said hi. And one day I came in after Mass, and I was wearing a dress, and he was like, well, hello there. Yeah, okay, Sid, fine, whatever. Well, it was hilarious.
I hate to say this, we digressed from the original question.
Let's go back.
About
old radio talk.
Your passion for news.
Okay, so back to how I got back into news. My husband said, kids are off to college. He says, okay, your turn. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? I said, I really want to get into news. There's an opening in Mankato. I'd love, it's a news director opening, but we'd have to move.
And he says about John Linder and
yeah,
Ron Linder
he said, go for it. I got the job. It was 4 years. It was amazing. And the opening came up at WHO, and I thought, I talked to my husband. He says, I love Mankato. I said, I know, I do too, but this would be like the opportunity. This is a legendary station. This would, they won't even consider me. This would be a career move of a lifetime.
Right.
And I applied and didn't hear anything for 3 months. And one day, the program director, Mike Dorwart, called and said, hey, we'd like to interview you. I'm like, really? I thought you forgot about me. No, not at all. And so I came down, interviewed with him and Joel McRae, and they made the offer, and I just couldn't believe it. And my husband was like, I can't believe we're moving. I'm sorry, honey, I know, but this is just the opportunity of a lifetime, and it has been. It has been so amazing. Yeah.
Let me tell you about Joel McRae.
Yeah.
And again, for people who don't know,
we're dropping
Joel
names
McRae,
here.
Dropping names here. Radio people in Iowa. He was inducted into the Iowa Radio Hall of Fame. General manager here for a long time. Joel and I go way back. Joel started out at KCOB in Newton. I'm from Newton.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that connection.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Newton. I still live in Newton. I never thought I'd end up back in Newton, but just like the WKRP theme song, Wendy, town to town and up and down the dial, but that's where I was for the last 16 years before I got let go by Alpha Media. And he's from Prairie City originally. And Joel gives my mom credit. I guess maybe she deserves a credit or blame for getting Joel involved in Republican politics. And he worked for me one shift at a radio station that used to be in Pella, Iowa, KXJX.
Uh-huh.
He was doing that and going to school at UNI
Oh,
and also
my.
working at KCOB in Newton. And he called me up after he did his one shift at KXJX and said, Jamie, I just can't handle it anymore. It's too much to have to deal with.
Oh my gosh.
But he, on and off, tried to get me on board with iHeart, either mornings at WMT or program director at WMT. And I think I burst Emery Songer's bubble, because when Emery Songer came on board as producer for Van and Bonnie,
Yeah.
Mike Dowart had called me and offered me the job that Emery ended up getting, because Joel had recommended me to Mike Dowart. But it was no more money than I was getting in Newton, and I thought driving back and
I
forth
know.
from Newton
And in
to
the
Des Moines and
winter,
back in the
yeah,
winter,
yeah,
and
yeah,
blah blah
yeah.
blah, and so I turned him down, and Emery ended up getting the job. And I told Emery that the other day, and he was like, wah wah wah,
Exactly.
kind of thing.
I can actually hear him doing
Yeah,
that too.
but I was always on Joel's radar, and or as
Yeah.
Joel would say it, on his chessboard. And so I appreciated Joel for always thinking of me. And I thought, well, okay, they let me go at Alpha Media. I've started my own podcast, and this opening for producer for the morning show
It's
came
a
on.
perfect opportunity to get
I
you
thought,
here.
what the heck?
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's all turned out great. And you people in the news department have been nothing but nice to me. Wonderful folks, so I just absolutely love it. So let's get back to some
Okay.
more questions. And
Yeah,
some things
storytelling here.
for
Okay.
you about. And I want to talk to you, and I'm not just saying this, and I've told you this, and I've sent you messages about this, but I love your style. You not only do the news, but you tell a story. And yesterday, I was listening to Simon's show, and I don't want to get into politics here, but a big news story about legislation in Iowa, and it came up on the talk shows today, especially on Emery's show. And at 4 o'clock yesterday, Simon Conway had started his show, and then you broke in with the story about the bill that passed.
Yes.
And
I didn't actually break in. It was my newscast. It literally happened 2 minutes before I started the newscast.
Oh, it was before you started the newscast.
It came a moment before I started the 4 o'clock newscast. It literally
Okay.
broke. And
Great,
so
great.
we started the newscast
Okay.
with breaking news.
I thought
yeah.
it was just after, but
Yeah.
be that as it
We
may.
talked later, yeah.
And then Simon came in, and I don't know whether he had some commentary, but I know he asked you some questions, and you said, I have to go back and check the code
Yeah.
on that. And then J.D. Snover came in,
Yeah.
and he reported from the Capitol.
Right.
And then Will, the producer, brought you guys all together. And I told Simon this, and I sent J.D. a note. And it's like, damn, Wendy, I'm so proud of working at this radio station.
Oh, let me
because
shake your hand.
Everything
Thank
just
you.
came together.
It is such an exciting.
Well, it is, and that's
Place
why
to
this
be,
is
yeah.
a legendary radio station. You guys are such pros, and I thought, wow, this is fantastic to be working here.
Well, and Simon asked a question that I had not heard. Now, obviously, he was prepared. He was prepped. So back to this. And you know, Simon knew about this. That was part of his show prep, and he threw me a curve. I hadn't heard about it, and I had already read through. I try to read through as much as I can
Yeah.
when these big bills come up,
Yeah.
and I didn't remember reading about what he asked me about. And what are you going to do? I mean, I didn't want to I just said, you know what? I have not read that. I don't remember reading that. Let me go back and check. And I speed read it again, and I couldn't find it in there. But because of reading so much of this stuff and so many legal documents, and I'm not a legal expert, but I was able to come back and say, you know, I can see the Supreme Court ruled on this in 2019 and said it was the question about gender changing medical treatment, and that Medicaid in Iowa had to pay for it. It was the Iowa State Supreme Court had to pay for it because it was gender identity as a protected class, which makes this medical treatment mandatory for them, because it would be discrimination if we wouldn't give them the medical treatment they need. And so what I was able to read into that and say to Simon is I believe, although I'm not a legal expert, that by removing this as a protected class, there would no longer be a requirement. It would now be an optional medical treatment, not a required.
I see.
Because it discriminatory decision-making wouldn't come into play anymore. So that was my understanding. And then I believe he had the author of the bill, Holt, on the air a little bit later, who said about the same thing.
I see, okay.
So that was my best try on it. Yeah.
You know, when news breaks out, you guys break in.
We do.
And you covered it, and it was fantastic.
Very exciting. JD's a real talented guy.
Well,
too.
he is,
Yeah.
and all your people are talented, and do a great job. I wanted to ask you about your style. And you talked about working in the Twin Cities. Are you familiar with Charlie Bush?
No.
Okay. You are familiar, I'm sure, with John Hines.
Yes.
Okay. When I went to school at Brown, John Hines and Charlie Bush were on KSTP. Now, there was a big top 40 battle going on. AM was huge at that time between KDWB and KSTP. And so I listened. Now, you got to remember, top 40 news. That demographic doesn't take news real seriously.
I grew up listening to that.
Okay.
Oh, man.
So Charlie Bush did a lot of his news headlines in rhyme. It's very unique.
Funny.
So you and he have the most unique styles I have ever heard. And it's like, did you do theater at one time?
In high school, I was a thespian, but that's all, only high school.
You put so much expression, and you tell a story. You don't just read the news. It's not bland by any means at all, and I noticed that right away with
thank
your
you.
delivery.
I hope that people like that.
You should take that as a compliment, because that's the way I mean it. How did you develop your style, Wendy?
You know,
did you get a lot of coaching over the years? Did you have a lot of mentors?
I started obsessively listening to top 40 radio in junior high school and high school. John Records, Landecker, from my cousin Debbie, Mickey, and Jerry's Breezeway in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. They'd have WLS on the radio. We could pick it up. And
Boogie check.
John Records, Landecker, and the Americana Panorama, the low blow to the groan. And I loved it. When I was at WROK in Rockford, they gave me the name Kim Casey. I was assigned the name. They did, because they had a shout that said Steve Casey, and one that said Kim somebody, and they put them together into Kim Casey because they didn't have to pay for it. So I was like, fine, I'm Kim Casey. I tried to be John Records Landecker. There's
the female version.
There was a suburb. It's no longer by this name. Now it's McChesney Park. It was called Love's Park.
Sure.
And that song Lost in Love was on. And I worked so hard to come up, long intro too, to come up with this little bit about, oh man, I was on my way to the mall and I asked a friend how to get there and they said, turn on this street and then turn on that street. And all of a sudden I realized, I'm lost in love, and the vocals hit in, and I was so proud of myself, but I was never John Landecker as much as I wanted to be.
Well, we all wanted to be John Landecker, I'll tell you. Now, when I was in Rockford, they had both McChesney Park and Love's Park.
Oh.
They had both.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they still do, but I thought they changed Love's Park to, but I haven't actually been back.
I loved Rockford, the town. It was kind of neat. It really was. And I still have a good friend who ended up being program director at WROK, and he lives in Rockford.
Who?
His name is Bill Shannon. And
I feel like I know that name.
Well, he was my program director when I was at KIOA here in Des Moines. And his boss, Kipper McGee, I think...
I know that name, boy.
Yeah, I was going to say...
I don't know him, but I know the name.
Yeah, well, everybody knows Kipper McGee. And again, I'm dropping names again like crazy. I talked to Simon a couple of days ago, and he says he knows Kipper because Kipper goes to all the conventions.
Oh, okay.
And Simon said, I think Kipper's hired about everybody, but Kipper was general manager of KIOA at one time, and Bill was his program director. So, and he's back in Rockford, and he does voice work. He's got a beautiful, beautiful voice. So what do you see for the future of news and AM radio?
Oh, boy, more philosophical questions.
Yes.
You know, it's changed so much, and my goal has been to keep that old-fashioned focus on serving our market, whatever market we happen to be reporting on, with as much passion and attention as we possibly can. That's the old-fashioned part. The newfangled is we do it in a contemporary way, fast-moving, a lot of technology, lots and lots of technology. What do I see for the future? A part of me hopes, and there are still smaller companies, mom and pops, they still exist. The station I left in Mankato is owned now by the son of the man who hired me. They've kind of added a couple stations to it, but it's still more of a regional group. I hope that continues, because I think that local passion and commitment is really important. I think iHeart should be commended for the great store they have put in to news. You know, we have not had widespread layoffs in our news department here. And in fact, when I came here, we had 5, and we were serving several markets out of Des Moines with 5 people. We now have Well, we have 14 and 2 others who don't work directly under me, but who I work with a lot. That's amazing. And we're serving a few more markets than we did when I came here. We've expanded, but at the same passion and commitment, and I try to instill that in everybody. You know what? It doesn't matter how tiny that market is. When you're the anchor, nothing else matters but how well you serve them, because they're counting on you. That radio station is counting on you. And iHeart has done that. We've got more than 400 news people in markets all across America. Some of them are dedicated writers, some are editors, but the vast majority are like us. They're anchors and reporters and writers and dedicated to serving their markets. And I can't think of anything that's more important.
You're working for a company that's $5 billion in debt.
I come here, I do my job. That's all that matters to me. I can't, we're living in a country that's $36 trillion in debt. Still living here, aren't we?
Okay.
We still have homes, we still do the best we can.
So you just live day by day and take life as it comes?
Well, I've been here 9 years now, and it's actually the longest job I've ever had in radio in one place. CCL was 6 years. Mankato was 4 years. These are my longest stints in radio. In the early days, it was lots of, yeah, I'm tired of this job, but you know what I found out about it? I'm tired of that job. I'm going to go here. I was bored as a DJ. You know, it's like, play a song. Who sang the song? Fine. Read the liner card. It's like, what a bore.
This is more exciting.
Oh my God, this is so, and it matters. What we are doing matters.
Well,
introducing a song, I'm sorry. I mean, it's nice. I like to listen to music. This matters.
It's something different every day.
We serve the community. It's more than that. We serve the community. When there's an emergency, we are here for them. We will help them. We'll stay up all night. We'll have people tag team to make sure we're reporting. We have an emergency system. iHeart does. I don't know that anybody else does. Any other company I've heard of has this.
Emergency system?
We have an emergency reporting system. I can from our newsroom here. I can from my home studio. I can from my company supplied laptop and microphone. I can put an emergency newscast on any radio station, technically any iHeart radio station in America, more immediately in our 6-state region. And we have 72 or so radio stations in our 6-state region.
Okay.
And if there is, an example, one of our markets is St. Louis. There was a tornado that hit an Amazon warehouse in the evening. It was full of workers. There were people trapped in the collapsed building. We were 24 hours a day from the moment it hit. We were doing live, almost live. You know, we record them and shoot them out, and they land in the radio station and go on the air within minutes. We were covering them around the clock for 2 days. You know, that is serving the community. And it's amazing we could do that from here. There was nobody right immediately available at the radio station. They absolutely then took over, you know, the local people did. But overnight, it was us, and we were there for them. Chicago, there was a 4th of July shooting. Music stations don't have a news department staff. We did live reports for Chicago on that shooting. And we learn in our jobs how to find news, how to find sources, how to verify our facts. And there's nothing more important than doing that. And radio's different than TV and different than newspaper. If you want to ask me how, I can talk about that too.
How?
So, one thing that is more important than anything is anybody could flip a mic and say anything. But in a news department, you want to be careful during a live police response, number one. And number two, you want to verify your information. If you cannot verify it from, yes, somebody somewhere can be saying, this is happening, that's happening, this is happening, that's happening. TV can say it, newspaper can say it, they can send out their text messages. But you know what? If you have a robbery and they shot people, and you have inside information, and you have social media information, and people are saying, oh, they're in a red car, oh, they look like this, they're going that way, and you put that information on the radio, what if you are tipping off suspects? What if there are more shooters than the one you might be hearing about? What if you're tipping them off? What if other people get killed as a result? What if the police end up in a shootout? What if an officer is killed because you put information that's not verified out there?
Yes.
So we are uber cautious. But how do we verify information? We work so hard to find our official sources. We call the police, we call the sheriff, we look at their social media. We have contacts already, but we are also very careful to verify our information before we put it out there.
So you have an opening, or I don't know, maybe 2 openings for news people?
We filled 2.
Okay.
And then we had another. And you just never know. And some of it was somebody retired. Somebody else just wasn't a good fit and moved on. Somebody else was a recent college person, and they decided to move into a different direction.
Okay.
So, yep.
So that leads me to the next question. What are you looking for in a news person?
Well, the opening that we have right now, we're looking for somebody with experience.
Okay.
We're looking for somebody who has worked in radio news before, who has anchored before, who can write really well and fairly quickly. A lot of our openings, though, and you met Claire, she's right out of college. I'm so proud that we did this. When Joel and Mike hired me and we talked about it, I said, we have a newsroom filled with people with 20 and 30 years of experience. That's really great, but we're iHeartMedia. We're the biggest radio company in America. That didn't come out quite right. Biggest radio company in America. I want to make sure I'm enunciating clearly.
Okay, you got to enunciate.
Well, it's important,
Yes.
What are we doing to train the next generation?
Right.
Who's going to anchor when all these people in our newsroom right now retire? And they kind of smiled. Joel, you can see a smile, can't you? Kind of smiled at me. Well, what do you propose? And I said, I propose that we start creating entry-level positions and bring people in right out of college, or maybe a year or 2 out of college after they try something else and decide, maybe this would work for me. And we've had several of those. We have 4 right now on staff. One ended up staying for 5 years.
Wow.
We have one who's been here for a couple of years. Then we have a couple who are really brand new. And some of them do it. We had one work here for 3 months and said, oh, this is not what I want to do, and was terrified of the microphone. I get that.
Sure.
Very smart and talented young woman.
I'm very terrified of a microphone.
Oh, get out of here. You sound great. I listen to you, Jamie. You are
Well,
great.
there's not much to listen to. I'm not on very often.
No,
but
but a little bit.
I
know.
I love it. So, Wendy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We're going to do a video here in just a few moments. But I applaud you and your staff here in the news department at WHO.
Thank you.
And you can find the news here at the top and bottom of every hour, unless, of course, there's a Hawkeye ball game of some kind going on.
But even then, we would break in if it was major.
Oh, yeah.
I want to stop because there is so much bashing out there. And I am not a shill, but I want to stop and I want to commend and thank and credit iHeartMedia because they have created this 24/7 news division and they have protected our news efforts. And that commitment is more important than anything these days, to have good quality news.
And I want to give you credit, too, because so many smaller towns, and I include Newton in that, too, and Grinnell, who have lost their local radio stations.
I know.
And you're covering those bases, too. You're trying your best.
We're trying.
You can't be everything to everybody as much as you want. You've only got so much time that you can put some of those stories in, but you're doing the best you can. And I applaud you guys for that. So keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
Well, I
welcome.
think your podcast is the coolest thing ever.
Thank you. Thank you. I love doing it, and
I'm glad you do it.
It's given a voice to, different people and different events and things going on around the Newton Grinnell area and central Iowa that wouldn't otherwise have that.
One thing I didn't say, there's a part of me that hopes that this younger generation, some of these people we hire right out of college, have never listened to the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Why would they? They don't turn on the radio. It's my hope that the new generation, the next generation, will discover it, and it will create a whole new resurgence of local radio. So I just wanted to say that I do have that hope in the back of my mind.
Well, I went to the grocery store the other day, and I had a KCOB polo on, and the clerk, probably, I don't know, late high school, early college, said, "What's KCOB?" And I said, "Well, it was a local radio station." And he said, I'll have to look around the house to see if I can find a radio.
I know.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll
But
come
it can
back.
happen. It can happen.
It
Yeah.
can happen. And I encourage all radio stations to start streaming if they're not already doing that, because that's, I think, the future. And I know WHO does that too.
Yeah, 30% of our listeners stream.
Stream?
30%.
You bet.
I
you
know.
bet. It's great.
Yeah.
Wendy Wilde, thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you. Did we exceed our 15 minutes?
Oh, we went way past it. It's 38 minutes now. But we're going to do a shorter
Jamie, thank
video.
you so much.
Thank you very much. Wendy Wilde, News Director, WHO Radio, our guest today on Out and About with Jamie Grout.
My bank is always charging me fees.
My loan rates are through the roof.
Sound like someone you know? You should tell them it's time to break up with their bank and find a much better match. Advantage Credit Union offers great rates, no minimum checking balance, and no monthly service fees. Plus, refer a friend to ACU this February for a chance to win a 55-inch Samsung TV.
I found my happily ever after with Advantage Credit Union.
No purchase payment or donation required to win. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. Federally insured by NCUA.
It may be cold outside, but spring is right around the corner. It'll soon be time to clean up and clean out. Your trusted Newton KOA Handyman service is here to assist with garage organization, home repairs, and yard work. We're giving away a free garage clean out to one lucky household. Enter the Newton KOA Garage Cleanout giveaway online at newtonkoahandyman.com or the Newton KOA Facebook page. Good luck!
This podcast also sponsored by Newton Clinic. Need care today? They've got you covered. Newton Clinic offers same-day appointments to get you feeling better, faster. Call or text them at 641-792-2112, 641-792-2112 to schedule your appointment today. Also by Lynette Baker, your Halo Branded Solutions representative. Free classified weekly. Westside Java Coffee Bar. Until next time, Grout is out. See ya.